Well, there are paper trails, and people
Mm.
that there's a guy by the name of John Rappaport that
Yes.
has a sign website, and he has a journalism background, and there's other people like them that can go into, let's just say, the Australian government where you're at, and they dig deep enough. The stuff is right. That's why I call it. It's all hidden in plain sight. They can
Mm.
trace down and go, how come your budget was 1 billion, but we're seeing like $3 billion flowing out when we start looking at all the books. Where did that $3 billion come from, and where did it go? And
Yeah,
just
exactly.
you mentioned a figure. How do you lose $7 trillion? Or in the case of the Iraq War that
Mm.
we were involved in, which was nothing but a war for oil, is all it was about, resources. As I understand it, there's like $1 trillion missing there. When you really do the
Yeah,
accounting, there's like, well,
yeah.
where did the trillion? Can anybody in the listening audience out there stop and think for a second how much $1 trillion is? That's 1,000 billion dollars. That's $1 trillion.
Wow.
And then when you start talking quadrillion dollars,
Mm.
I mean, it's just these, James. These are just numbers that are so baffling. But again,
Yeah.
you've got, I could transfer to you right now all $33 in my checking account. No, I'm just kidding. To you, and just do a wire transfer. They move this money around. It's all
Yeah.
digital. It's
Yeah.
just zeros on the, and banks lose money to people that they can break into their computer systems. They don't like to tell people about it. But every
Mm.
now and then report will come out that says that, oh, Chase Bank lost $50 million in a transfer by some people in Russia that were, somehow broke into their computer system, and just $50 million just goes poof. It's an
That's right.
electronic transfer, so you can move wealth around, but
You
it's these
can.
mass stores of gold, hard
Mm.
currency that you wonder, geez, are there mountains of it buried somewhere? Are there jewels buried somewhere? It is a treasure, treasure
Mm.
hunter's fantasy, I guess. I can just imagine somebody in the jungles is stumbling across an entire cave full of gold bars and jewelry and all the these different wealth items. What would you do with it? What would you do if you had all these
Well,
gold
well,
bars?
the other thing is if you admit that there's more gold than there is known to be, because the people who set the gold price, that's based on supply and demand. There is a set amount of gold in the world, and they know exactly to the ton how much has been discovered in the history of the Earth. But they said that the Yamashita find alone in the Philippines was about 3 times more than the gold ever discovered in the history of the Earth, and that's just one. Like, there's big stories about what the Vatican got. So if you ever admitted, this is what I think the problem is, if you ever admitted to how much gold there is, and gold is just, we could have this conversation about diamonds and any other resource like this, but if you ever admit, and oil's another one, there's a lot more oil, I believe, than they're saying. So therefore, if you admit to that, that the gold would be not worthless, but it would be, we could probably buy it for $5 or $10 instead of what it.
Exactly. It's so much of
Yeah,
it, but
yeah.
it's the play. Like I saw a picture, or actually, it's a video of diamonds in Russia. Their
Mm,
storehouse. It was like a warehouse full of diamonds. And
yeah.
they only release so many every year into the market to keep the value up on it. But that up in northern Canada, there's huge deposits of diamonds and different types of gemstones up there. But you know what they're doing with all this banking and everything. They control value. I think that's what was the
Well, I think
real
it.
term we're talking about
Yeah,
is value. VALUE. It's a
right.
whole. How do you control value and
Well, how
power?
many times? How
Power
many
is
times,
value.
Dwight? When you watch the news, Dwight, how many times do you hear scarcity, scarce resources? So
Yeah.
I think I'm not denying that some things aren't running out. Don't get me wrong. We've got a big planet, big population now, but I think with some of these minerals and so on, they're creating the illusion of scarcity, and that's very profitable.
It's very profitable. If I told you that we had a wheat, now we don't even know if it really is true. We have a massive, let's just say, corn famine this year. Some bug took it out. Now you and I didn't go down and check the fields or anything, but
No.
right there you create a scarcity, and the price of corn would go fly, sky high. And developing countries use corn and grains for most of their diet. It's amazing the power out there that moves things around. Tankers full of oil waiting off the shores for
Mm,
refineries. Just one
mm.
tanker ship after another tanker ship. Pipelines that are completely filled up with oil with nowhere to go. I guess they just turn the valve off or something until they can do something with it. But there's a lot out there, and but if you can control it or the illusion of scarcity, then you
Yeah.
can have oil up to 130, $40 US dollars a barrel like it was just a few years ago. And look how much that drains out of the economy when you're paying $5, $6, $7, $8 a gallon for gasoline to get around.